What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from Zoom again, and this time we are here with John DeMena. It is great to be able to talk to you. Thanks for being here, man.
Anytime, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Thank you.
anytime, man. Anytime. Your debut album, Dreams and Lies, is absolutely kick ass. For people who haven't heard the full length album yet, though, do you feel like the first singles that we heard so far, Eternal Eyes and Dream and the title track, Dreams and Lies, is a good like representation of what this whole album will sound like? Or is there a lot more uncharted territory to be explored with this album?
Oh, thanks so much for the kind words for the album. I do think that those two singles like kind of like represent the diversity of the album, because it's an album that kind of goes like like from like heavier sounds to softer sounds to like a lot of lyricism and all that. And I think that those two songs really represent pretty much what the whole concept or like the sound or like behind the album. So I do think Eternal Lies and Dreams and Lies was the first one that I wrote for the album. So it was kind of like the one like that kind of like pointed the direction of the album. So I do believe those two are like the best representation of what the album's going to be.
Mhm. Was there sort of like, being that this is the debut, you want to hit the ground running with it? Was there sort of like a preconceived vision of what you wanted this album to sound like, or was it a very much roll of the dice and like experimental songwriting process in a way?
I didn't want to put any limits when it came to the songwriting too for the album. So like the first song was Dreams and Lies, and that was kind of like the one that was like it was pretty much like seeing myself like as a debut, like how far can I go with this, in terms of like the songwriting. So I was really experimental when it came to that. Like it's a song that goes from like very very soft guitar-y type of thing to like a very edgy and aggressive, or where I sing from my lowest register to my highest on that, and I do harmonies and I do all those things. So I was really like thinking about the song first. Like I was just like whatever the song was telling me, that was the right thing to do, so I was really experimental when it came to that. And I was really trusting me and trusting the songs, and then see what the song was saying, or always from a very honest songwriter point of view.
Yeah. Well, you did also have like a killer lineup with the making of this album. Glenn Sobel from Alice Cooper, and Matt Road of Jane's Addiction, and Pete Griffin, who played with Steve Vai. So did maybe working with these musicians allow you to kind of like lend in all your individual talents to create almost kind of like one hybrid of a sound in a way? Or did you not want to really bring in the sound of an Alice Cooper or the sound of a Jane's Addiction or Steve Vai in it?
I mean, you definitely need like musicians like those to, like kind of like encompass like all the sounds and all the styles that were in the album. The things like I wrote everything first, and then when I was time to think about like who would be like the right players for this, there were friends and players that I've been knowing for years from shows here, like jam sessions. They played in other bands who were friends of mine, and I was thinking like, hey, do you want to play this uh, you know song, or do you want to think about like doing like recording this album? And then just because of the diversity and the different sounds, they really helped me achieve what I wanted. Like I mean, just like the sound that I have in my head, and kind of like the diversity and the type of sounds that. But of course, like you have like killer players like those, they're really gonna make it sound like stellar, which is what I really wanted to do for that. So yeah, it really it shapes your sound, or it really makes it like very special when it comes to that. And it feels very nice because it's like kind of like finally you achieve this sound that you have in your head, like for a while, and that you wrote, and it's like, and then you just bring it to action, and then it sounds exactly how you want it, which is very fulfilling, I would say, for an artist.
Definitely. Did you seek these artists out in a way? Like, did you specifically reach out to them, or was it kind of like one of those like organic moments you just sort of you met at the Rainbow or something like that, or met at a show or something like
No,
that?
many of them I know from. There's a very cool club here. It's called the Baked Potato. It's been going on for 50 years. It's mainly like a jazz club, but I mean, I've seen everybody like Steve Lukather. I've seen there. Like Joe Bonamassa. I've seen there. Danny Carey from Tool. Is kind of like a like a very musicians type of hang. And then many of them were playing in a band called Volto that was like very good friends of mine. And then just from seeing them every night, and then talking every night, and then you just hang, and it's like, hey, I have an album, will you be interested? And they're like, sure, man, like I would love to hear it, I would love to do it. So that was kind of like the sound that I was after, and then it worked out great. So really, yeah.
I've noticed that every song on this album has sort of like its own vibe behind it. When you open up with "I the People" and then go right into "Turn Me Loose" and then into "Internal Lies" and then you end with "Infinite at All," like it seems like every song had its own rules that it played by in a way. Is every song sort of like representative of a specific emotion or specific idea that you were feeling, or did you almost kind of want to maybe use this album, even though it's your name on the album? Maybe you're kind of using this
Hmm.
music as more of like an escapism and portraying maybe like, for lack of better words, like an alter ego of what John Medina is.
Oh, that's very cool. No, it was really like the place where I was at the time. I mean, I write everything myself. So like if you're a solo artist writing everything, it's like after like a period writing one song, probably the last thing that you want to do is write another one like that. It's kind of like, so it's really refreshing. But at the same time, I was not putting any limits when it came to that. I was like, just following, like it always started like with a riff or something that I would have, or, and I would just, go with it. And then I wanted to portray like something different at the same time, and kind of like capture where I was at the time. It's more like place, or like where I was, like artistically or like lyrically or like my idea, and try to also like diversify a little bit when it came to that.
And for the lyrical aspects behind it, did what could a lyrical idea for your songs maybe help dictate the sound of the song in a way, or did you always prefer to have like a whole composition written before any lyrical ideas came to fruition?
Normally 90% of the time I'm musician first. So normally it's like a riff, normally like all the, like the more, heavy driving songs, or like the more riff driven songs, or this started with a riff, and that was like the thing that, was like, following the, like the, or like just putting the, the pieces, one in front of the other. Sometimes a concept or a lyrical idea. For example, like Eternal Eyes, I always have this, it's the concept that I liked. It was like it's two words that, depending on how you say it, they can mean different things. It could be eternal eyes, like your eyes are eternal, or it could be eternal lies, or it could be also eternalize, like the verb or something like that. So I really like that ambiguity, and like wanted to play with that and leave it open to different interpretations. I mean, if you have a good line, it's a good line. Sometimes, like, you have a good line, and it's like, oh wow, this, speaks for itself, and this has to go somewhere, and it will. But 90% of the time is the music first, then the lyrics and melody. But of course, like it's just, I really want to have a concept behind that. Like Dreams and Lies, I always wanted to have that concept, or like that, yin yang, or like type of thing, for that song. And I always wanted to play like, hot and cold when it came to that, like soft and aggressive or expressive, but then like screaming or pain, but at the same time, that's hope at the end. So yeah, cool. I mean, it's just being creative, and enjoying the process too.
Yeah. Well, when I heard "Eternal Eyes," because I probably said "Eternal Lies" so far every time in this interview, but that's because it reminded me of the Machine Head song "Realize, Realize, Realize." So I've always
Yeah.
thought that those play on words were pretty fascinating. Was that like a line that you just said by accident in a way? Was that sort of like a happy
I'm
accident?
just somewhere like, and that entire song is a trip. I mean, that song, and it's probably my most futuristic or dystopian, and like the riff at the beginning just came from, like tuning the wrong way. Like I was tuning, and I was tuning on the wrong fret or something like that. I mean, and it was done dun dun dun, dun, and then it was like, oh, this is very cool, and I just went with it. I just, just went down the rabbit hole with that, and I just, followed it. And then Eternalize was the same idea. I was like, I don't know where it was. It was like, that's a cool song title. I was like, Eternalize, because it has this mystique. But then if you read twice or think about it twice or something like that, it could be something else. And it played with the, dreams and lies idea. I was like, that's a cool thing. I mean, I always try to come up with something that is, you know, different or unique, or something like, so what you leave behind is something like, that at least is that's a cool concept or a cool idea. So yeah, that was like, it happened one day, one of those ideas that happen, and then you just grab it, and then it's like, in a few years, this is going to be a song or a concept, and it, materialized.
Yeah. Do you want like your material to be open to interpretation, or do you try to engage the listener into the story or the lyrical meaning as much as the music itself?
I try to, like let the, the listener experience it, because I mean that way everybody's gonna have like a different version or like a different story or interpretation when it comes to that. I mean, I like to just give concepts or ideas here and there. But then sometimes, like if it's 100 people talk to you about what it means to them, it's like each one is different. It's like 100 different versions or ideas, or oh, it means this to me, or it helped me this way. And I think that's even better than just saying, oh, this is one idea or this is one version or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's called out like saying, oh, this idea, or you convey that as, no, that's not the concept or something like that, or that's not what it's behind it. But I really like people to experience the music and say, oh, I think it means this to me, or is it, yeah, good, man, like. Plus, there are songs that were iconic for me, and then when the artist that I loved explained it, it was like, oops, it was way bigger in my head. So I just don't want to.
Well, I
I
mean,
don't want to.
well, I mean, whether you're right or wrong about the concept, I think in the end, your own interpretation of it, whether it be your material
Yeah.
or you interpreting somebody else's material, I think it's fair to say it adds another layer of context to it, regardless, right?
Yeah, I think it was like a couple of years ago. There was, driving here on LA, and then there was a story. I think it was a Led Zeppelin song or Stones. They were on the radio talking, and they explained there's a song that it's called "Enter to Exit" or something like that. And they're like, "Well, if you want to hear about it, I mean." From that moment, I was like, and there was like, well, literally, they were in a pub, and then there was an exit to the patio to smoke, and I say, "Enter to exit." I was like, that was it. And then fans were like, dude, like to me, it was like this mystique or like a thing, and it was way bigger in their heads than that. And after that, I was like, I'm not gonna explain my lyrics to anyone, because it's really like killed my vibe on that one. So
Yeah. Well,
so yeah.
I think explaining your lyrics is something that is also important because, like, and it's cool when art is open to interpretation, but I do feel like maybe every artist should have the ability to explain their
Mhm.
work as well, right? Like, like, I think it wouldn't be very right to just say, ah, it's whatever you want it to be, and I don't put much thought into
Mhm.
the lyrics, right? Like, I think that could also have its own line of disadvantages.
Yeah, that's a true thing. I wrote a couple songs that were like on character. I mean, they were not. I mean, I was experiencing things through friends, or there were, people around me that went through things, and then it kind of felt like something that I wanted to do like a piece where it was like them speaking or something like that. So there were like a few things that I wrote that was really on character, or like just it was like very life experiences from people, and then I thought it was cool to to do a song about it.
Do you believe inspiration is something that could be sought out in a way? Like, can you look for inspiration, or do you just have to kind of let it hit you?
I mean, you the quote that from Picasso is like inspiration comes, but you have to be at work when it comes, or something like that. So you have to be working all the time. I think forced, or like just when you force yourself to do, I think curiosity and then just playing around, being playful with things opens up more doors. Than just like just trying to get in front of the computer, just grab a guitar and trying to write something. I think like I always welcome ideas, and I always welcome different things, or I try to change things around, and then that's when I would say inspiration comes to me. But at the same time, is like you really have to. I don't think the muses just come down just one night, and like you're illuminated, and then this things comes or something like that. But for me, like the best things that I wrote were like the first moment, like it was like first thing of the day, or you just grab a guitar, you're like in the moment, I would say. When you're really in your head, rarely something you have to think too much about it. I mean, nothing good comes out. I mean, at least for me, I would say.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, do you almost like have to be in a specific place in order to be in songwriting mode, or does like do you just get the ideas like when you least? I can only imagine. I would say 9 times out of 10, artists always tell me that they get inspiration from either the shower or when they're driving, which are like
yeah,
places you can't bring your electric guitar into, or
yeah.
you're not having any
I get a
recording.
lot of things when I'm moving or when I'm walking. Like if I'm like, for example, like lyrics and melodies. Sometimes it take me longer than anything. Like I can write an entire song, and it takes me a while to be like. I mean, I come up with a lot of things, but I was like, is this, is this it? Or and then I can be here for hours doing things, and then just go somewhere. And the moment that you start moving or something like that, like the ideas start like coming or something. You kind of like like just sing the song or something. So that really works sometimes for me. Changing things around. I mean, how many musicians will tell you that just come up with a weird tune in one day that you were like out of your comfort zone? You can you don't know what you're playing, and then you just have to follow the intuition, and then you come up with something cool. So sometimes it's, also like being outside of your comfort zone. Yeah, but normally motion for me, shower, like driving to, and also like being in places. Sometimes you somewhere, there's a conversation somewhere, that's somebody saying something, and you hear it as like, oh, that could be a song, or that's a cool idea or something. That's, not always in songwriter mode, but I always like with my ears open to, and then you just add it, and then a few years later it just becomes a song or a line, I would say.
But do you find it maybe like the longer you're working on a song in a way, the harder it is to sort of capture a moment in a way or maintain the
Yeah.
inspiration that initially sparked
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, I have a bunch of songs for years that I mean, I probably abandoned them already because I don't even want to go back to them. But yeah, normally if you spend a lot of time, or if you force them, or it's just the longer that I stay with something, it's just the longer that it stays in the drawer. I would say, like many of the best things that I wrote were very fresh, or like very in the moment, like you're really in the moment, or and also knowing when you have to take breaks, like, and we have to move on from something, and then revisit, or so yeah. But that's something that I really wanted to do with this. I didn't want to do like songs or riffs that were in a drawer for years, and I would just remixing them or refrying them or something like that. So yeah, I
Yeah.
try to keep it fresh, or like keep it refreshing. I'm also like this the only person writing it, so for me, I have to, program the drums, I mean, for demos, and come up with the guitars, and then the bass line, and then the lyrics. So if it's not refreshing, it just the burnout, so I try to, keep it like very exciting for me.
Of course, like, cause like, let's say you had a really shitty day and that inspired you to write a song, but you put it aside later, and then come back to it when you're having a good day, or when you're having
Hmm.
another bad day, but that bad day is for a completely different reason than the first bad day. I'd almost feel like it's almost kind of like Frankensteining the song in a way, where
Yeah.
like you're
Hmm.
like it would make it harder to keep that emotional consistency.
Yeah. Sometimes it's even worse with the technical stuff. It's not so much with the songs. I mean, there are things that, like the mixes and this, and you keep going back to the mix, and you don't like this, and that. When it gets to that, point is like you just have to abandon. I mean, they say that records get abandoned, they don't
Yeah.
get finished, or songs. So I mean, sometimes it's very true. So yeah.
Yeah, which while it is like one of the most cliche answers to answering how you know when you're finished with a song, just because it's a cliche doesn't mean it's not true, right?
Yeah. No, they were like, sometimes you just have to let it go. I mean, it's just otherwise, because I mean, you're not neutral to when it comes to that, and then you just need like like a fresh ear, and then you just, and also you have to trust yourself and trust where you were at that moment, and just know that it's a snapshot of your life, or where you were, and then a few years later you hear it, and it's like, dude, that was like, but that's who you were, like. And that's what I like about bands that like that we start listening when we were kids, or you hear them now, and it's like, if it's true, like it still conveys the same to me, even though they're 20, 30 years older, technology has made it sound better now or something like that, but if it's true, it still has the same impact to me.
Definitely. And when you express yourself through different forms of instrumentation, being a vocalist and a guitarist as well as arranging everything, does different forms of instrumentation express different sides of yourself, or being that it's still coming from your own heart and your own mind, that maybe that your guitar work very much expresses the same emotion that your vocals do, and etc.
Normally, it's just like, my rule is like, if it feels good, it's good. I mean, I cannot sing something that I don't feel, or like the guitar solos, or I cannot. I mean, I cannot just do it all for just filling space, or like, oh, it's 16 bars, just put this over here or something like that. So always try to keep it like something that it's it comes from. I mean, if it feels good, or like if is that you, or like can you stay behind that, or is that a statement that like, and 100% of the time is like less thinking, and being in the moment, like the best. Sometimes like the best takes, or like the first ones, because you're very open to it, and it's like you're really filtering the song, and then the moment that you start thinking about it, it's just kind of like you can hear the artist thinking. Sometimes there are songs, or there are things that everything comes through the speakers, like even like the mentality at that moment, like everything comes through it. And sometimes I can hear people thinking, or I can feel people like just filling up space or something like. So I try to keep it like to the moment that it's true, or it's just the energy is better. I would say the energy of the take is good. That's the one that I go with,
Yeah.
even
Well,
if another one sounds even better.
yeah. It's ironic. Like the mind that creates all the work is sometimes it could be destroyed from the same place that the idea it was originally from. It's the
Yeah,
mind.
yeah.
The mind is like one of those things that are very hard to turn on and very hard to turn off at the same time.
Yeah, the same, like to domesticate it, it's just to a point that, it comes and goes, or, yeah, for me. And then the thing about it was also like, it was when the pandemic started, it was like the time that I was also here. So you have a lot of time. So I was like, if I don't, play with things, or like, just revisit things or look at things from a different perspective. And what happens most of the time is that you're revisiting the album and you end up writing another album or something like that, or you just come up with another idea. But it was that mind. I mean, I was just being playful, and then just having fun with things, and then pushing myself outside of the limit, and I'll try to just write the same song all over again. But at the same time, you have to know when to let it go. I would say artistically, for me, like if you're in a band and it's five dudes, or like or gauze or something, that's a different thing, because everybody has their sound, and it's but if it's just one person, you really need to know when to take breaks and when to move from one thing to the next one. Otherwise, just you just burn out, I would say.
Yeah, knowing when to do that is just as one of those things you need to learn, just as much as learning your scales on the guitar or learning,
Yeah.
structure or arrangements. Just knowing when to put things down or step away is just as much of a thing that you need to learn. And you could tell who has learned it very well and who hasn't. So.
Yeah, yeah, I would say, yeah.
Mm.
Mhm.
So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time and for such a awesome conversation to end this week with. Is there just anything else with the release of Dreams and Lies that you would like to promote in terms of shows, or what else we could be expecting in the future?
Yeah, thanks so much, man, for having me. It's a real pleasure, and I hope everybody likes the album. Check it out, John DeMena. It's everywhere, Instagram, Spotify, anywhere you buy music, or check out the videos. Let me know. I think the videos are like very different, and it gives you like a different type of look. So it's really enjoyable for you, the listener. And then like stay tuned, follow me, or like just check out the interview later for shows coming up. There are a bunch of things that we're putting out together. There's merch. There's like a bunch of things coming up. And thanks for having me, man. And then, my pleasure.
Anytime, man. Anytime. Thank you, everybody. We are here with John DeMena. Be sure to check out Dreams and Lies. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.